first thing to say about the key person approach is that it's well worth um, it's well worth thinking about the words key person. That most people would have key people in their lives, that they would understand that those key people are in some ways absolutely distinctive from a much broader range of friends, associates, colleagues to whom they may feel quite close, but wouldn't probably categorize them as, oh, that person is a key person in my life. And it's the same for children, that individual relationship at nursery, the key person is a key person from the point of view of the child. Eleanor Goldschmidt, who was the originator of the key person approach, and by the way, she was very keen that the role should be called a key person rather than a key worker. She felt key person was much more personal. One of the things about the key person that Eleanor used to say was that it needs to have meaning as a role from the point of view of the child. The child needs to feel, even a baby needs to feel thought about by an individual member of staff, an individual practitioner, but also to know the child in a deeper way. You know, what makes that child react in different situations, what sorts of things that child is really good at, where they really have agency, and where they're more vulnerable or more likely to be stirred up by something or upset by something. We'd probably call that in everyday language, you know, the kind of things that push our buttons. And all of us have those sorts of experiences, things we're very good at and very confident at and can manage, and things that make us much more tense and difficult. And I think the key person to know that about each of their key children is such an important part of helping that child manage those emotions of confidence, which really need nurturing, and the emotions of vulnerability that need understanding and responding to.
We've been looking at the Education Endowment Foundation's guidance report on improving social emotional learning in primary schools, and considering the sort of sequence of development that may happen in a primary curriculum, starting with nursery and reception. And so the report talks about nursery and reception children can identify and express basic emotions: happy, sad, angry, worried, or scared. And I wondered, how do you think that the key person approach can help children to become more aware of those fundamental emotions described there and begin to manage those emotions as well?
Well, I would say that perhaps the most important thing is for the key person just to allow themselves to know about those emotions first. So a key person, or a kind of substitute or backup key person, if you like, who's greeting a child in the morning, and a child is anxious or worried about coming in, the key person will have all their own feelings of anxiety and worry about managing the day and coping well. And it would be so easy for the key person to want to sort of push away the child's feelings. Perhaps when they're receiving many children, they're trying to think about many children's emotions, about getting them into the nursery physically safely, about making sure there's a basic goodbye to the adult, whichever adult has brought the child in. But I think if the key person can just, in the context of all of that practical work that needs to be done, either at the beginning of the day or whatever point of the day it is, if they can make space somehow for thinking to themselves, what are the emotions that this child is feeling at this point? Then if they can be known about, then there's an opportunity to go to the next step and think, how can I help this child with these emotions? And sometimes that might be about a little bit of encouragement and a kind of an expression of belief in the child that they can do it, as it were, that they did it yesterday and how well they did it yesterday. But it might also have to be something a bit different, that they need a helping hand in some way, and that it is difficult to do. But I think if the key person can hold them in mind, hold those two ideas in mind, can this child manage this? What sort of help do they need? How can I just almost incrementally help them to move from being a bit wobbly to coping, compared to a child being just too wobbly and needing much more support?
Yeah. And one of the kind of general rules we have at Sheringham about trying to make that judgment when children first come into nursery and haven't yet been settled in, they're still at kind of early stages of coming in. One of the ways we make that judgment about children who are distressed when their parent or carer leaves is whether the child accepts support and comfort from the key person, which suggests to us then that together this pair is going to manage a difficult sequence of events. Or if the child can't accept that comfort and support and is just too overwhelmed by anger, is running backwards and forwards or resisting any intervention from the key person, that's the point where we think, actually, these emotions are too overwhelming for this child and we need to protect them and bring the parent or carer back in.
I think that's absolutely spot on, Julian. I think that's absolutely, just absolutely says it, bang on. And in a way, it's complex. It's about making judgments. And if I could sum up anything from all the conversations I've had or interviews I've had with nursery practitioners and with heads and managers, I think one of the most striking things is how much the practitioner is drawing on their own internal resources to make those judgments, but is also drawing on a sense of what they think their head expects or requires from them. And if the head is saying things like you've just said, that is such a tremendous resource for the practitioner to feel, I can make this judgment here. And if the head is giving a very different sort of message, that if a child is crying, then that's something that's really quite negative and perhaps a negative indicator about the practitioner, then of course the practitioner, the particular person doing that piece of work, is going to be so much more anxious and so much more worried about getting the child in, without any sort of expression of distress by the child, because it's going to be seen as an indicator that the practitioner can't manage it very well. So I think the lead of the head and the culture of the setting is so important, so important. Practitioners, are making enormous numbers of decisions each day. It's physically demanding work. It's been well recognized that it's intellectually demanding work. I don't think it's been very well recognized how emotionally demanding it is. Very small children manage their emotions very often by making somebody else feel them. It's not always easy to put emotions into words, but you can make a sensitive, responsive key person very stirred up by your upset or your anger. So there's, alongside the physical and intellectual work, there's a lot of emotional work to do.